So thank you everyone for joining. As Nancy said, my name is Gina Sizik. I'm with DFG 401k Advisors. Also on the line with me is Dan Nason, another one of our advisors here. And at the last slide on this presentation will be our contact information, also for another one of my associates, DB Johnson. So feel free to reach out to any of us after this presentation, and we will answer questions and try to get you the assistance that you need. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and just give you an idea of where we plan to, or what we plan to discuss. So the intent of this meeting today was really primarily to cover the very basics of your 401k plan. You know, down the road, I know your team would like to do some ongoing education in this area about just retirement saving, financial wellness. So if you have other topics of interest, please do let your team know, and then we'll try to work with them to cover some other areas of your interest as well. But today what we're going to cover is a little bit about why it's so important to save for retirement. We're going to talk about your plan features and benefits, a little bit on investments, where to go to get help. So we'll go ahead and get started. So let's talk a little bit about why saving for retirement is really so important. And I know that all of us love our jobs and we come to work every day and we're excited to be able to work with each other, work with our clients. That's an important part of our lives. But at some point, we're going to want to retire. And the day that you retire and the day that is your last day of work is the day you have to start creating your own paycheck, right? So it's important for us over the course of our working life to put some money aside. So when we do decide that we are ready to retire, that we have some money to live on. And I don't mean to suggest that you're not going to have money coming in from Social Security. I'm hopeful, and I believe that's such an important benefit that it won't go away. However, even now, it is not really sufficient to provide a really comfortable savings for you. So it is really important for us to take this time as soon as we're able to create a retirement paycheck. And most easily that's done through a company sponsored 401k plan. So to that end, I want to also mention why it's so important to start saving early. I know when you're in your 20s, retirement is probably not top of mind. I'm sure you have 10 other priorities that are really important to you, but there's such a huge advantage if you start saving when you're young. So in this slide, we're going to look at two savers. First, we're going to look at Alex, and Alex starts working, and at age 25, he begins to set aside $4,000 a year, $333 a month into his retirement savings account. And he's committed to that, and he does that for the next 40 years of his life. So from age 25 to age 65, he does this exact contribution level, never changes it. And he invests it in a way, I would say, in a moderately aggressive portfolio to try to get about a 6 to 7% rate of return on his account. And over that 40 years, he puts out of his own pocket the $160,000, that block that you see in green. But because he has saved and invested over a very long period of time, that blue bar, $503,000, is the accumulated compounding earnings on his contribution. So you can see the advantage here. We call this making your money work for you. By investing it and allowing it to compound and grow, he ends up with a lot more money in earnings than he did put in out of his own pocket. So he ends up in a great position at $663,000 in retirement. Now we'll compare Alex to Emily. So Emily starts working at 25, so she doesn't quite get around to saving for retirement until she's 35. But at age 35, she does the exact same thing as Alex. She puts that $4,000 a year into her account. She invests it in exactly the same way. And she continues to do that for the next 30 years. And over that 30 years, out of her own pocket, she puts $120,000 aside. And you can see she also has compounded growth, $214,500 in compounded growth. She ends up at $334,000. Now that's a really nice sum of money. However, look at the difference between what Emily and Alex ends up with. And that's because Emily had 10 years less to allow that money to compound and grow. So 30 years versus 40. It's amazing what each year means in terms of saving and compounded growth. And that's why we really try to encourage people, even if it's a small amount, to begin saving when they're young, because it does give you such an advantage in the long term. I do want to mention just one other thought on that. It doesn't really mean that if you're 35 and you haven't started saving for retirement, that you should just throw up your hands and say, well, forget it. I'm never going to catch up. The difference is that if you postpone saving for retirement, you are going to have to put a little bit more out of your own pocket. So had Emily contributed a little bit more in her account, she could have caught up and probably done almost as well as Alex. So the advantage of starting when you're young is you can put in a little bit less because of the time frame. If you have a little less time, then just remember you have to put in a little bit more out of your own pocket. So let's talk a little bit about the Mark Taylor 401k plan. So in general, 401k plans are employer sponsored, right? So you can only get a 401k plan when you're working for a company that offers one. And it allows both employee contributions and employer contributions. And it is specifically intended to be retirement savings. So it's not just a short-term savings account. This is money that you should try to put aside and really not touch. And this is what's going to create your paycheck in retirement. So a couple of things you need to know when you put money into a 401k plan or an IRA, an individual retirement account, it does have to stay in that account until you're at least 59 and a half. And if you take the money out prior to age 59 and a half, it is subject to penalty, 10% plus tax. All right. So while you're at Mark Taylor, the money remains in the plan and continues to grow and invest. And then I guess what I would suggest is if you were to ever leave Mark Taylor, you can make this money or take this money with you to your new 401k plan. You can roll it to an individual retirement account. Either of those two things will keep your money safe for retirement. So it is really important to think of this as long-term savings, and then use it and have that money set aside. All right. So what's the best way to save? This is an important topic these days, especially if you're a younger investor, but for, I think, anyone who is trying to put money aside for retirement. Traditionally, when 401k plans were set up, the money that you contributed out of your paycheck went over to your 401k account without paying taxes on it. So if you took $100 out of your paycheck and you put it into your account, you would not have to pay tax. It would reduce your taxable income every pay period. So that's a really nice option, right? We can save taxes today. And the whole idea is that when we got to retirement and we have no regular income coming in, we will be in a lower income tax bracket and therefore pay lower taxes at that point in time, because the money is taxable as you begin to take it out. When you take out that paycheck, you will have to pay some taxes on it. The difference now with a Roth 401k, and some of you may be familiar with the Roth IRA, but with a Roth 401k, instead of getting that tax break today, that $100 that comes out of your paycheck and goes to your 401k account is actually taxed. So no tax break. You'll see the full tax on your paycheck. But when you get to retirement, those distributions, everything comes out tax-free. So the money that you contributed, you've already paid tax on, but it's those earnings that you're going to get coming out tax-free. Now, employer contributions are always contributed pre-tax. So even if you were to say, I want to put 100% of my money into a Roth because I like that idea of not paying taxes in retirement, your employer contributions are accounted for separately and they're kept pre-tax, and they would be taxable on distribution. So if you're like many of us, you say, well, I really like to get a tax break today, but I really also like the option of saving money that's going to be tax-free in retirement. You can do both. So let's just say you were going to do a 6% contribution to your 401k plan. When you do that contribution, you could choose to do 3% traditional and 3% Roth. Right? And it is the record keeper's job. So it's John Hancock. They're keeping track of the money that is contributed to your plan. And they will keep track of your traditional 401k, keep track of your Roth separately, and also keep track of your employer contributions. So when you go online and you look at your account, you'll see one total number. But then when you drill down a little bit more specifically, you'll be able to see separate lines of how much is 401k traditional, how much is Roth, and how much is employer contribution. Right, so it is important that all that gets tracked. So you have a lot of flexibility here. And also I want to say that maybe you're young, you're not in a high tax bracket right now. You think, well, maybe I'll take advantage of the Roth while my tax rate is low. Let's say 10 years from now, you're in a different situation, you're making more money, for whatever reason, your tax bill is a little bit high. You can at any time change your future contributions. So you could say, okay, I can't really do 100% Roth, maybe I'll do a little Roth, but now I need to redirect, I need the tax break. So my future contributions now are going to go in traditional or pre-tax. So going forward, you can change your allocation between these sources, but once the money's in the account, it does remain separate and you don't commingle them in any way. And by the way, I'm going to mention, because Roth and traditional, this gets a little bit confusing. So at the end of the presentation, I'm going to unmute everyone. If you do have some questions, I'll be happy to address them then. Just a little bit further on the Roth, just to kind of show you what that might look to at a paycheck. So the blue paycheck represents a traditional pre-tax contribution. And you'll see on the left, if a paycheck, and this is monthly paycheck that we illustrate here, if that was $2,500 and you did a 6% contribution, and that $150 went over to your 401k traditionally, right? So now we're reducing your taxable income by that amount. And you can see your taxes here are $352. So your total, I should say your net paycheck is going to be $1,998. Now, the yellow is the Roth illustration. So you can see the first thing that has to happen is we pay taxes on the whole $2,500. But we still put the exact same amount, 6% of the gross, going into your Roth, and you'll see the difference in the paycheck. So you're going to pay a little bit more in taxes. You're going to get a little less in your net paycheck. Obviously, the more income you have or the bigger your paycheck, you're going to see more of a differentiation there. So this is just meant to be an example so you can see the difference between the pre-tax and the Roth. Let's go back and visit our friend Alex. And let's just say that Alex had decided at the age of 25 that he was going to do the Roth contribution. And he kept contributing strictly Roth money in his account. You can see that he would have paid $160,000 for his contributions. He paid that. But the amount that he would have pulled out tax-free in retirement is that $503,000 of compounded growth. And that's why, to me, this becomes so attractive as an alternative when you're really young, when you have that really long time period of allowing this money to compound and grow. Again, a mixture of pre-tax and after-tax, the Roth could be an advantage at any point in your life. But for me, it makes a really good story when you're young. So let's talk a little bit about joining the Mark Taylor plan. It's quite easy. You just have to be age 21 and have 2 months of service, and then you can join the first day of the following month. So you can get in pretty easily. Now you can contribute 100% of your compensation. Maximum is $20,500. So if you really don't need any money to live on, there you go. You can put a lot of it in this 401k plan. But for most people, they're trying to find a reasonable amount that they can contribute. So most people are closer to, whatever the match amount is. You'd like to see people work their way up to 10%, maybe a little bit more if you can. That would be a great goal. And then if you're 50 or over in this year, 2022, you can do an additional, what we call catch-up contribution of $6,500. So it's very, very helpful for people that are closer to retirement that realize they're coming up a little bit short. Now you can make changes to your contribution amount monthly. Now, we hope you won't take that literally and change it every month, but it does give you flexibility. A couple of things I like about that flexibility is, first, let's just say you have an unexpected large bill, and making these contributions during that month makes it really kind of hard. So what you can do is you can stop your 401k contributions for a month or two, but make sure you remember to join the plan again and start your contributions back up. So you have some flexibility there. The other, I guess, the more favorable way I like this is because let's say you're not really sure how much you can really contribute out of your paycheck. You're not sure what that's going to look like. Well, start at 3 or 4%, especially if you're pre-tax, you won't feel that too much. But remember to try to increase your contribution rate periodically. So maybe 6 months from now, you could do 1 more percent. Another year, you can do another percent, right? So realize you can take small changes to your contribution rate, and ultimately that makes a really big difference in where you end up in retirement. Now, loans are allowed, but not encouraged. So what you need to understand is when you borrow money from your account, that money comes out of the account. It's not there to compound and grow. And obviously then you're paying yourself back monthly. And you pay yourself back with interest, which is fine, but it means that money's not in your account growing. So be mindful and kind of use that as a last resort. And then also, if you have an old 401k plan or an old retirement plan out there and you want to bring it into this plan, I'll show you a number. There's a consolidation team at John Hancock, and they can help you with that process. So let's look at one of the best features of this plan, and that is the employer contribution. So the company now is matching 50% of what you put in up to 6% of salary. So it's a lot of percentages. So I try to give an example and make that a little bit more real. But if we looked at an employee whose annual salary is $40,000, and let's say they decided to go for that full match at a minimum, go for that 6%, that means that employee is contributing the $2,400. And then Mark Taylor is matching that. So a 50% of that 6%, that's $1,200. So the total contribution into that account for the year is going to be $3,600. So that really puts you in a great position. It really gets you close to being on track. Obviously, we would like to see people get closer to that 10% total or maybe a little bit more, but that really puts you in a great position. Now, the money you contribute to a 401k plan is always your money. However, employer money you become entitled to, or we use the term vested, based on your years of employment. So when you're employed for less than 2 years, you're not vested. And then every year after that, you go up 20%. So after 6 years, you're fully vested. And this goes from the time you have been employed at Mark Taylor, not the time you're in the plan. So if you've been at Mark Taylor for a year or 2 or 3, and now you join the plan, you're into your vesting schedule. So that's a real advantage. So how is your money invested? Try to make this as simple as possible for people. So in this plan, we have what's called a qualified default investment alternative. In other words, you sign up, you don't know what to choose, it will default into what's called a target date fund. And in your plan, it is the American Funds Target Date Series. So this is a portfolio that based on your age will gradually change over time, starting out more aggressive and ending up more conservative. So it's really done for you. Now to figure out if you sign up and you say, well, I'll pick my year, you would know your year by taking your date of birth, adding 65, because we figure we use 65 as the approximate year of retirement, and that'll give you an idea of what target date you would go into. And then what happens is this is what your portfolio looks like. And you can see if we look all the way to the left, we have a lot of like these blues, and that really represents stock in your portfolio. This light blue over here is bonds and cash. We'll call that the safe part of your portfolio. Well, when you're young and you don't have much money and time is on your side, that's a great time to take more risk and have more exposure to equity. But as we get closer to retirement, you're going to see this is what we call a glide path. The equity component of your portfolio reduces, and then we have more safety, right? So we get to a market like this, there's a little bit more safety in there in bonds and cash to kind of maintain your balance and not have it feel the impact of the market quite as much. So that's a very easy solution, sort of a do-it-for-me type of strategy, and really works well when you're just starting out. Now, if you really like to do your own thing, you like investing, you find this stuff really interesting, then you have funds in this plan that you can use to create your own portfolio. This is just giving you an idea of all the different slices of the market you might want to include. So in your plan here, I've got a list of your funds. We've got the most aggressive funds on the top. So international, small company, those are the ones that are considered the most volatile, often have a lot of opportunity for growth, but not without volatility. And then we move down the list until we get to large companies. If you looked at like a T. Rowe Price or Vanguard or that MFS value, you'd probably recognize a lot of the companies that are in there because they would be larger but well-known established firms. So considered a little less risky, but it is still stock and it will move with the market. And then we have the target date series, a little bit more moderate. We have a Vanguard Wellington balanced portfolio and then bonds, and we have a fixed account as well. So the idea is when you're young, much like we saw with the target date series, you would want to probably overweight the equity pieces of the market, but still have some exposure to bonds. As we get closer to retirement, we definitely want to overweight a little bit more the conservative parts of the options here, but still have some small exposure to the market as well for longer term growth. So just a little bit about how you join or how you can learn more about your plan. So you can go online, and I'll show you the website in a minute, but you can go online to John Hancock and set up a user ID and password and get yourself registered. Or you can also use their mobile app. I think for a lot of people now, they do so much on their phones. Having a mobile app is just really great. So know that there is one available, and it's a great, convenient way to be able to engage with your plan. I do want to remind you one very, very important thing, and that is that you must identify a specific beneficiary for your 401k plan. So even if you have a life insurance beneficiary or you have a will out there, in the 401k world, we definitely need to have specific 401k plan beneficiary. So please go online, name a primary beneficiary. That would be if something happened to you, that person would receive the benefits, whatever you've saved. Normally, if you're married, it's going to be by default your spouse, unless they waive that right. If you're not married, you can name anybody you'd like as a beneficiary. And you can also name a secondary beneficiary. If something happened to you and the primary beneficiary, the secondary beneficiary would receive the funds. And please, please make sure that this is current. A lot of things happen in our lives over time, so it's very important you kind of revisit who your beneficiaries are periodically. I mentioned before that you can roll money into this plan from an old 401k or 403b or retirement account. And John Hancock does have this team that's available. And you're welcome to call them, or you can call general customer service and tell them you need to roll over your account, and they're happy to help. Our team can help too if anything gets complex or they don't do a good job. You let us know and we'll get involved as well. But usually these teams are very proficient because this is what they do all the time. And then one other feature of this John Hancock platform is that you can go on their website. By the way, they have a great website, so I encourage everyone to go check it out because they have a lot of educational information out there, not just about your 401k plan, but financial wellness in general. So it is really a very good website. But one of the things they have is a tool where if you like the idea of doing your own thing, but you want to get free advice and kind of figure out what's the best allocation for you, there's a tool so you can do that. You can also they have fee-based advisors available. Honestly, to me, that makes the most sense if you're getting closer to retirement and you really want to get some professional advice. There is a fee for that, but that service is also available. So you do have options too. So I mentioned that I would give you some contact information. So for the John Hancock team, we have the website, myplan.johnhancock.com. Again, you'll go through that process. I'm sure you're familiar with setting up your user ID. For security purposes, it is so important that you do that, again, using the mobile app or, having, the main app, right? The main online app as well, or online site as well. So either way, please go up and set up your own account with your user ID and password. And then I've listed our contact information here. We do a lot of meetings, so sometimes it's easier just to shoot us a quick email and set up a time. But I do have our general office number up there as well. So all of those are options for you. And now I'm going to see if I can unmute people. So if anyone does have questions at this time, I do want to take a moment and see if there's anything that we can help you with. Any questions, comments? So I do want to let you know we are recording this, as we mentioned earlier. So if you do have some information you want to go back and review, we'll make that available to you. And otherwise, if you do have questions for us, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to answer your questions and give you some guidance.
There's a question in the chat.
Any other questions? Anyone else? Oh,
There's
chat.
one in the chat, yeah.
Oh, okay, let's see what we've got here. Where can you see what plans you are currently? So the question is, where can you see how you're currently invested? Online, you can go to the myplanjohnhancock.com website, and then on the top, I went out to the demo site because I don't like you. I don't have direct access to this, but on the demo site there were some tabs across the top, and if you just click on each one, you'll pull down and you'll be able to see where you can see your account summary, and you'll be able to see how you're invested. And then there's another pull down so that if you wanted to make changes to your investments, you can do that all online. One thing I suggest for people, if you haven't gone online to make investment changes before, one of the things I like to do is you just bring your account up, have everything ready, but maybe also call customer service and have them walk you through that just to make sure you're doing it correctly. Especially, and if you're not going to do that and you feel fairly confident, when you do make those changes, realize it takes a day or two for them to process, depending on what time you go in. Please make sure to go back out to the website and make sure everything got realigned and all the changes happen the way you want them to happen. I think it's always a good idea to double check. You don't want to wait until you get your next statement to find out, oops, that wasn't exactly what I wanted. It's a good question. Anything else? Okay, I don't hear any other questions, so I will take this time just to thank you for joining the call. I hope you found this helpful, and please do reach out if we can provide any other assistance with your 401k. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.